is the final bridge, as you can see in the game. We did the same with Jim. This is Jim 1.0, and this is the latest Jim, as can be seen in the game. Marsara Bar is even worse. This is one of our earliest iterations of Marsara Bar. We knew where everything needed to be placed, so we mocked it up, and we built it the way we thought it was going to be laid out. As a final result, this is what it looks like in the game. So, and finally, it's Zeratul. Here's also a before and after of him, Shader 1.0 and basically going to 2.0. And finally, as one more thing with the creation, this actually translated all the way to cutscenes. Here's a cutscene that we also showed at Blizzcon 07 of Zeratul warning, which you guys can see the before and after on completely. And with that, I'll pass you on to James for storyboards.
Thanks, Shimon. I'm going to take you from storyboard through animation. And to start off, I'm going to use it as an example, Char Battlefield. Specifically, this cinematic was titled Card to Play. In the beginning, the director and the storyboard artist get together and they make the storyboards. Making drawings and cutting them to music is still, to this day, the best way to create a story in making an animated film. It's fast, it's freeform, there are no creative limitations whatsoever. And that's necessary because there are many different ways to tell one story. Basically, you have a lot of ideas to try before you find the best idea or the right way to tell a story. So I'm going to take you through this next specific clip of this cinematic with sound, and we're going to take it all the way through the pipeline. So next step after the drawings is pre-visualization or previs. This is what that looks like. This is the process of converting the storyboards into 3D space. It basically describes what is going on. And here, in both the storyboards and the previs, we have General Warfield up against a Zerg rush. He runs out of ammo, he's got to think quickly, and he bayonets one of them, close range. So we have to describe that in 3 dimensions. So the way we do that is we take our characters, we stage them, we give them proper camera angles that reflect the storyboards, and we give them basic actions that were also reflected in the storyboards. And we also have to either maintain or reinforce or improve the pacing that was in the storyboards. So we start simple and we build complexity on top of that. Hopefully by this time we have a good working version in 3D. Then after that, before we get into any animation, we take a step to the side and do a little bit more planning. At this point, we know exactly what our characters are doing, but we don't know exactly how they're going to do them, their actions. So we do some more planning here. We get in front of the camera, and we practice. We rehearse, we do many takes, and we try different performances. It's our experimentation grounds. During these type of studies, we get to look at the body mechanics. We get to try out the different characteristics as well. We also will look deeper into the lore. For this specific character, General Warfield, we know a little bit about him. We know that he's the top general for Valerian Minx. He's very experienced, lots and lots of combat training and combat experience. He is quick-witted, he's physically strong. So what do we do with that information? We want to make that some of his core characteristics. We want to make performances out of that. So what we decided to do was, for this cinematic, we want to make him likable. We want to put him in battle. We want to show you how he proves his rank, and get the character involved, get you in there. So we also wanted to describe his struggle. He's a top-ranking officer without ammo on the battlefield. The situation is dire. If he were to die, his mission might fail, and he has to lead the charge and lead his army and take down Kerrigan. So we definitely wanted to show the struggle, make him show just on the very, very edge of survival in the cinematic. On this particular clip, one of our actors/animators is, bayoneting one of the Zerglings, but he doesn't have a Zergling to act against. So the challenge is to come up with something that is a starting point. We get some information about body mechanics and weight in this sort of film, but we have to do the rest in animation. So we get into animation, we take all of our planning, our previs, our storyboards, and this live action reference that we did. We distill it down, we take the most important elements, and then we start animating the scene. Some things get cut out, some things get emphasized. For the first pass animation, our main goal is to take our core elements and our core values of weight, anticipation, and strong posing. And hopefully by this time it's also cutting a little bit better as well in the edit. Next, after that, we go to our second pass of animation. Here, hopefully, we've refined the body mechanics, and we also get a chance to put in some of the core characteristic values that we talked about earlier, like being quick-witted, the struggle, and things like that. To be specific, we wanted to show how he reacts and how strong he reacts, how quickly he reacts after running out of ammunition. He makes a decision, he goes for it, and he fights hand-to-hand combat against the Zerglings. Also, just to show the weight, he has to put his full body weight into the Zergling. And if you watch at the very end, he has a little stutter step. He has to put so much weight into the throw and so much force, he has a little side step, a little stutter step there. By taking all these small ideas and compounding them together, we can overall make a better cinematic. I'm going to play this again with sound. All right, now I'm going to hand it back to Scott, talk a little bit about what happens when you finish the animation and you export it to the game.
Thanks, James. So at this point, Shimon's team has finished the models, at least the model portion of them, even if they're not textured. James's team has put together some animations that are ready to be put into the game. So now we export it. The first pass of an export almost always goes really, really badly. That was one universal truth on Starcraft 2. So the first time we export it, it looks something like this, where there's no textures on the wall. Warfield is doing something really odd. He doesn't have a rifle. There's no Zergling. Kind of a mess. But it's really hard to tell even what's going on here. So this is where being in-game actually has one advantage. In the tools that we have, all we have to do is back the camera out, spin it around a little bit, look at it from a different angle. And oh yeah, that's definitely not his correct animation. I still don't even see the Zergling, and there's some flickering polygons going on behind in the sky. So we pull out even further, try to figure out what that is. And okay, that's the Zergling. I don't think that's one of his regular moves. So at this point, we go into hardcore technical mode and just try to debug it and figure out what happened. As it turns out, the wall just wasn't textured yet, no problem. The rifle had never been exported, so it just wasn't available in the game. That's an easy fix. And then for Warfield and the Zergling, well, it turns out their skeleton hierarchy had changed since they were last exported, which means we load up the animation on it, and the animation is trying to move the wrong bones to the wrong place. So once we fix all those things, it comes together. And you can see from this angle that it's all working. You notice there's a little pop in the middle on Warfield. That's actually the shot cut. And we do a lot of that, where we animate the actors directly to the camera. So when we go from one shot to the next, we'll move them a little bit and they actually jump around. Some places quite a bit, but it's not actually a bug. It just looks like one. But in fact, if we look from the real camera, Zergling, kill, throw, perfect. That's what we were looking for. It's actually it's a fairly common problem. In fact, it really happens all the time that when we export stuff to the game engine, things disappear. Things aren't showing up where they're supposed to, and we have to try to figure out why that is. So there's a lot of debugging time. And sometimes, even after things have been working for a while, they'll suddenly stop working. So, for example, we'll go play a movie that worked yesterday, for example, Escape from Marsara. The day before I captured this, I know there are mutalisks in this scene beating the snot out of the Hyperion as it's trying to escape. But now they're gone. So I got to try to figure out where they went. And sometimes that takes a lot of research and digging. Other times, they're really easy to spot. They're all hanging out on the bridge. Now, why are they doing that? Well, the main source of the problem is usually the fact that when you're making a pre-rendered movie, you're taking all of your assets and your animations and you're handing it over to a rendering engine, and all that engine does, all it knows how to do, is draw those things to a frame. Just takes what you give it and draws it. But we're dealing with a game engine here, and a game engine wants to do a whole lot more than that. So if I give a model with a bunch of animations to the game engine, it wants to attach AI to it and move it around. It wants to give the player control of it. It wants to make that unit run around and attack other units. It wants to move it from point A to point B. It wants to blend animations together so that they can run and shoot at the same time. There's all these things that it really badly wants to do, and we have to take a lot of steps to tell it not to do that. So when we fail to do that, then things start to break. But once we convince the game engine to leave our stuff alone and just let it draw, then everybody's happy. So now that it's running in the engine, we can start lighting. And for that part, I'm going to hand it off to Shimon again.
Thanks, Scott. Right, so once everything's exported into the engine and animation is done, we require locked cameras as well most of the time. Then we can start lighting. First thing we really want to do when we start lighting is kind of find out what environment is the character in, where's he at. In this case, we know it's Char. We know Char is it's a pretty harsh environment. It's filled with lava, it's actually infested with Zerg. So not a nice environment to be in. What we do is we take all the final textured assets and then drop them into the set, and this is what we get as a base lighting. Then what we try and do is basically we add just default lighting. We just want to explore what the character, how he reacts to lights. Where does the specular shine, where doesn't it, and where's the best place it can be. After that, we actually add ambient occlusion. That's just a fancy word for saying contact shadows. We want him to sit better with the environment. We want him to have shadows when he leans against the wall. Once we actually do that, we start refining where the direction of the sunlight comes from. We do this until we're generally happy. And as you can see in this shot, he's actually a little dark. But that's actually when character lighting physically starts, when we actually have this base to work on, the base lighting. And basically in Start 2, most of our characters have 3 lights to them. That's not a golden rule we had, but we gave him 3 lights. So Warfield's first light went onto his face. We wanted to make sure you could see his face. We wanted to make sure the emotion on his face was seen, and this was our first light we were going to give it to him. Our second light was basically on the bayonet. That was a major focus of this shot. We wanted to see the bayonet pop out, and we wanted the user to also look at it. But what started to happen here in this shot was basically Warfield was too integrated with the background. So for the third light, what we did is we basically rim light him and the gun. That just pops him out of the set. Now you can basically look at the gun. We even added more of a specular highlight to the gun so you can really see it. And that basically completes the lighting. That gets passed on to our art director to approve. And once that's approved, we add the final pass, which is depth of field and an effects pass. That pretty much completes the shot. Here is the final capture from the game as completed. And with that, I'll pass you on back to Jane for localization.
Thanks, Shimon. Localization. This was a huge challenge for us. We're very proud to say that we shipped this game simultaneously worldwide in 11 different languages. Every single sign, every single decal, every single poster, heads-up display, and all the lines of dialogue. Our own localization team, as well as our individual artists and programmers, helped make this happen. So I wanted to show some of this off. Right here I have the next clip is a Korean version of our cinematic